Hey, everybody. Welcome to season 3 of the Gathering Room podcast. We are excited to have in the room today two amazing guests. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you. Amen. Before we get started.
Oh, ladies first, always.
Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Tyler Richardson and Pastor Michelle's daughter, recently licensed as a minister. So
Congratulations.
to support in any capacity as it relates to that new title I'm walking into. Thank you.
All right. Great. I am Andre Richardson. Uncle Andre, as most people know me as, or as my family would say, the president of the family. I've been doing podcasts for a while now, and mainly my podcast is based off of starting your own business and everything that comes along with it, and success and things that's not successful. But I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited. Thank you, guys, for being here. I know your schedules are busy, so it's hard to get both of you at the same time. So I'm excited to have you here today. Listen, folks, I don't know about you, but man, the climate around this world has been like epic, like things that have been happening in the areas of fear and tormenting thoughts and people having to guard their mental health. Man, things with the president, people worrying about being deported. There are, tariffs that are running up the cost of living at every turn. Man, I don't know about you, but as a Christian, even it has been a challenge to navigate these circumstances, even though the Bible tells us that these times will come. You agree? God told us that these times would come, but not to faint, because what? I've overcome the world. I'm excited about that. See, that is what anchors my faith. But today we're going to talk about fear. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 tells us that God has not given us, this is the Christian we're talking about, the spirit of fear, but in exchange, he's given us, right? He's given us love and a sound mind. And today we're going to talk about that, y'all. We're going to talk about how fear can sometimes trip us up. What are some of the strategies that we use as Christians ourselves to navigate fear? So I'm going to throw it out here for the panel to talk today about fear. As we watch and see some of the events in the world unfold, and just please unmute yourselves as we see some of the events unfold on the earth today. Tell our listening audience what is your response to some of those events?
Well, I like to stay out of policy because I know a lot of that is a lot of what's happening as it relates to the administration and the things that they're doing to specifically target people is creating fear in communities, and it's making people feel more isolated. But what's important to note is that there are people rallying and getting together because of those things. And I noticed too that even in like the hardest times when things feel unbearable, we still find ourselves connecting to one another and latching onto each other in support. Yeah. That's something that's really important. And as a Christian, because if you don't have people around you, you must read your scripture, you must pray, but having those same believers that trust in God and believe that he can do the impossible help to support you in your own beliefs and be grounded in those things, and remember that you're not alone. So that's one thing I would say.
Absolutely. From the business aspect of it, there is a lot of fear. Out of the communities that are being targeted right now by all this political strategies that our so-called person is supposed to be in charge is doing, has really put a damper on the workforce. America built on the labor of people. So whites, blacks, Hispanics, all that stuff. And we've taken out a lot of Hispanics when you speak about it, with this ICE and the fear of leaving your house in the morning to go to work and not knowing for sure if you're going to go home. I had guys that work with me forever, and they feel like they're being targeted. So like all of them are getting rid of their white work vans. Now they're driving Toyota Corollas to work and things like that, small cars, and trying to put all their tools in it because they just not trying to be seen. They just want to come in, do their job, and take care of their family. And it's a sad situation because I feel like it started with them, and then who's next? It seems like it's spiraling down, and the way it's going. I don't really dig deep into political views because there's only one president in my life, and that's God. So in the Bible, it states in many things that there will be trials and tribulations, trials and tribulations and things like that. And you go through a lot of things, but I fear God, but I don't feel man. I don't fear man. I don't feel society. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Look at it from that point. When you've been through a lot, you've been through struggles and things like that. You get tired of being fearful about things. It consumes you. It stresses you. Can't sleep. You just worried. And half of the time, there's nothing to be worried about. The outcome is going to be the outcome, whether it's a good outcome or whether it's a bad outcome, but it's going to be an outcome. So at that point is when you dive deep into your spiritual person and trust in God that He's going to see you through it. God will, as they say, God will send you a lot of turmoil to test your faith sometimes. And you got to understand that. I know sometimes we've had situations where we look up to the side like that and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, what did I do? Like, when is this going to stop? But it's like I heard this gentleman say, not to take over the conversation, but I heard this gentleman say that he used it as his grandmother, how his grandmother take ingredients and put them in a bowl, and how as a child we used to watch her bake a cake from scratch. And she put everything in a bowl, and we didn't care about what she was putting in the bowl. Everything was going inside the bowl. We didn't care about that part. We just wanted to lick that bowl when she was done, right? So if you grew up around my time, I don't know how Tyler, you might be too young for this, but I know LaShawn might know, but not saying about age, but you wanted to lick that bowl. You wanted to get your finger in there. You wanted to taste that ingredients, right? But you wasn't really part of the creation of it.
Yeah, the process.
So when he was explaining that God is the creator, right?
Yeah.
So he's creating things. He's creating things in your life, right? Now, He put the creation together. Now, it's your turn to make that creation to come to life. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're trying to make that come to life, now you got to put it in the oven, right? Then if you got a fancy oven, God bless me with a fancy one. I got a light on mine and I can push the light and I can look inside and can see the transformation and I can see the dough rising and I can see everything going up, right? And now, so grandma, she didn't just put the pound cake in the oven. She put other things that she created together with ingredients, and she put all these things in the oven at the same time. But some things came out before other things, right? When you use that with your life, you say, okay, grandma opened that stove, that oven door, and she took a toothpick and she stuck the toothpick inside of it. It wasn't to let air out or anything like that. She was testing to see if it was done yet, because even though the outside looked like it was done, but until God is finished with you, it ain't done. So you got life is that toothpick sticking inside of you to see if you're done yet, but you're not done until God says you're done. So she closed that door back, pushed that stuff back up in there.
Heat on it.
Right, exactly. Put some more on it. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes you have pan that might be 2 inches. And sometimes you have a deep pan that might be 8 inches. You understand what I'm saying? So some things will take longer. You got to have patience and you have to have faith. And all this stuff will come to light for you. So some things in your life is in that 2-inch pan and they come out quick and fast. And as the human side of us like that gratification, quick and fast. Oh, I prayed for this and bam, God did it just like that. Sometimes it don't work like that. God wants those ingredients to cook and be right. He doesn't want to give you something that's unfinished.
That's good. That's good. So literally using your fear to fuel your faith.
Right. So you got to take that fear and you got to flip it. You got to turn it around, because the outcome is going to be the outcome. And it's hard to, it's easier to say than to do. Trust me on that, because I know, as I've been in situations where I fear. And then you're like, some point, and it's going to be what it's going to be.
Let me tell you, a lot of fear, the anticipation of or the reaction to certain things. More of it is the smoke and mirrors. I've heard people describe fear as false evidence appearing real, but I have defined it as fear flips everything around in reverse. So if it looks like to me that it is a situation that could potentially cause harm or potentially cause some anxiety to rise up, I think about it in those terms like, what? This is a lie. And for me, even as a Christian, so as a Christian, it's not as easy, even though you think that because you're a Christian, you just automatically, boom, you got faith, bam, it's all good. But it doesn't work that way. Faith has to be developed. I appreciate that you said that. It has to be developed. We all have been given a mustard seed size of faith. But when we feed our faith, we become stronger and we develop the endurance to endure life, circumstances and issues and challenges that come about that require us to endure. It's interesting you said that even with that toothpick, and I think you stole that from my sermon, just by the way. I ain't even going to mess with you on that. I know you're an avid listener to my sermon. But no, interestingly, it's true. To whom much is given, much more is required. So if you've got a lot of faith, you may be tested more in the area of fear. Well, I believe God can provide a home for me to live in, but when it comes to me making my money, I know how to make money. So I may struggle a little bit to give God that because that's something I can control. One of the things that along the lines of the anchoring scripture that we are using, that God has not given us the spirit of fear. Anything he didn't give me, I reject. So if it didn't come from him, I reject it. First of all, the way you talking to me, I reject that because that God has not given that to me, but he's given me in exchange for fear, power to do something about it. If the situation that makes you fearful, and I want to talk to you a little bit, Tyler, about this. If the situation you're in makes you fearful, what power can you use to get to the other side of whatever it is you're fearful about? Why are you fearful? God has not given you the spirit of fear. You reject that, but you have power to do it. Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, Unc, I'm going to throw that back at you and don't use no more of my sermons. So
I agree about being able to choose faith over fear, making sure that you're exercising that muscle because it is like a muscle. It's something that you must continue to exercise to be able to grow in that. And like you said, God will test you with different tests and trials and things that we experience that we may not typically be used to. But same way, like when we play games, and I'm an avid player of games on my phone. So like there's a new level every stage and then you earn different things. There are so many different levels and layers to it. And it's honestly our responsibility to trust God, even when we experience uncertainty or anxiety. And I also want to draw onto the scripture, Psalms chapter 4. This is the King James Version. It says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, and thy rod and thy staff comfort me." And so God will correct you, but he's always going to keep you in his safety. That's because he is managing everything. It's like to say he's managing the cosmos.
All right, now.
I mean, fear is a natural. It's a natural thing. You naturally have fear inside you. I listen to a lot of different motivational speakers. I listen to a lot of different people who do a lot of talking about science, about things like that. A lot of the things that we do, that we have deep inside of us, it wasn't inside of us when we were born. We were taught.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You see, we was taught fear. We was taught to be afraid of something. We was taught, you need to be afraid, like people that are afraid of dogs or people that are afraid of cats. If you never been around a dog or a cat, how are you afraid of it?
Right.
Now, I'm talking about domestic cats and dogs. I'm not talking about the ones in the jungle.
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
But there's this thing of this word fear itself. It is a natural emotion. And so it is not wrong to fear things, but how you handle it and how you attack it is where the training, like you said, it's like a muscle. You got to keep training it. You got to keep training yourself to face it. I fell a week ago, hurt myself pretty bad. My ribs were bruised up and I could barely walk, and fear took over. I was like, I'm not going outside until the snow leaves. I don't care. I said, I don't want to see no snow outside.
Understand.
I was in this house for over a week and I started losing it. I was just like, I got to go outside. I was so overwhelmed with falling again and re-hurting myself. I was just like, I got to get over this fear. I can't stay in the house forever. There's a whole thing outside this door. I got to do it. The society today, when you're dealing with fear, there's so many things that can help you deal with fear versus you fighting fear. And it's crazy because I use that as I wasn't hungry because I had them bring the food to the door. There's so many platforms that I can just order whatever I need. Grocery store, I don't have to go to the grocery store no more. It comes to my front door. If I wanted something for the house, cleaning products, I can order it. It came to the house. Everything that I needed, I could push a button on my phone and it was coming to me. So I was giving in on the fear that I had to walk out the door. And so I had to think about that. So I'm like, I'm buying groceries and I'm buying cleaning products and I'm buying everything that I need so I don't have to walk out that house to go nowhere, right? Jeez. But then it dawned on me, why don't you just buy yourself a walking stick and go outside and go do what you have to do? And then that's what I did.
That's awesome.
I was excited. Every time my wife or my child came in the house, I was like, was there a package downstairs? Was there a package downstairs? I was so excited, and I got it out the box and I put it together and I started walking around the house, and all of a sudden I just started feeling so much better. I figured out what I was fearful for and I figured out what I needed to do to overcome that fear.
Love it.
That's where the disconnect comes in at when you're dealing with fear in your everyday life, your personal life, and fear in your business that you may have or your workplace. People fear their supervisors. That's a person. You don't fear man or woman. That is that person. If you feel like that person is disrespecting you, but you're too scared to stand up and say something, that person is going to continue to disrespect you.
Absolutely.
You say something. That person is going to continue to disrespect you.
Absolutely.
You say something. I've always had a reputation on jobs that I had that the people knew they couldn't just come and say anything to me.
Right.
And then there's old sayings like, don't use the bathroom on me and tell me it's rainwater. No, this is not rainwater. So it's just like
value. What did Reverend Jesse Jackson say? I am somebody.
Right. Yeah. And you have to let people know, you have to stand up and you have to say something. You have to face that fear. You can think about what's bothering you, what's scaring you, and then you have to figure it out and attack it. And like, hey, the outcome is going to be the outcome. If they fire me because he didn't like what I said to him, then, but he's not going to disrespect me again.
That's it.
He doesn't value you as a person, or she doesn't value who you are and what you mean to the business, then somebody else will. And then it might be the opportunity you've been waiting for to start.
Hey, I want
to sneak that one in there.
This is a good segue into the question I was getting ready to ask both of y'all. But thank you for sharing that, because fear is an emotion that you can utilize as a tool to get to the next level. And I just heard something today that mentioned that it can potentially propel you into a new level in your life. There's a serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. You can't change a human being. You can't change a circumstance. All you can change is yourself and your response to those things.
Hey, everybody. It's season 3 of the Gathering Room Christian Podcast. 24 hours of Christian programming to fuel your spirit. Tune in to Small Business Q&A with Mr. Richardson, The Real with Tyler, power-packed faith-filled messages, and go behind the scenes with the TGR Hosts Unplugged. Subscribe to us at tgr.online_GS on all social platforms. Don't forget, tap that notification bell so that you can be reminded whenever we go live. We'll see you soon.
Tyler, share with us maybe an example where fear may have been rearing its ugly head and you either overcame it or had difficulty navigating it. And tell us a little bit, just from a transparent standpoint, what did that look like for you? And what did you do to overcome? Because sometimes we don't always overcome it. Now, let's be clear. Now, we're talking about the empowerment, being given power to do different things and to have love, because I did want to talk about love, and we'll do that in the next segment, and a sound mind, because God gave us those three things. But there are times when fear rears its ugly head and we are not that successful at that. Let's talk about that. And what did you learn from?
Well, first, before I go into my personal story, I wanted to also bring up the David and Goliath story, because that is a prominent example of how when you're facing something that feels like it's out of your control or just feels daunting, makes you sometimes want to shrink into yourself, or it makes you realize how small you are in comparison. But trusting God and still going forward and doing the things that he tells you to do can change the entire result in the dynamic of how you're able to face the problem that the Goliath, in other words, that you're facing. And for me, just as you were talking, my example, I always go back to this because this was where I felt like my faith was most tested. When I was in school, and they tried to revoke some scholarships, and it was like a period where I was already completed halfway the program, and I was in my junior year. And so they tried to pull the funding, and I ended up having to scramble to try to find financial aid and supports there. And I remember talking to you, Mommy, just about feeling like, okay, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm not dropping out of school. Like, that's just not happening. And it was like my faith that took over, because it was like, I didn't know how it was going to be solved. And I didn't know how God was going to come through for me, even in family members or folks that I reached out to that still supported and helped in the funding. Like, I did not anticipate or expect anybody to just give freely like that just because they wanted to support me in this effort. But it was like God moving on my behalf and moving on the hearts of those around me. And even Pastor Talbert, with her sweet self, just grabbed my hand like, baby, it's going to be okay. And I remember that. And I just remember all the love and support that was around me. And it wasn't just that got me through it, but it was truly the aspect of me knowing in my spirit that I did not want to drop out of school. And I knew God was going to make a way for me to continue. And so I did get the scholarship and funding that I needed for that year. And the devil still had his ways of trying to test me. There were things that still fell through, like so the first semester of that year was covered. And then when I came back the following semester, like, oh, there's still money missing. So it's like, okay, do I need to go back to the drawing board? Like, I thought we just overcame this. And so like going back and I worked in the dean's office at the time at Temple. So I was able to use the resources that were in my sphere. So I was able to go to him and make sure that I was reaching out to make sure that those, my funding and scholarship and tuition, everything was, up to date. God made a way. And even just going out, like stepping out on faith and trusting God, you have to do it, even especially, actually, not just even, but especially in the moments where you feel uncertain, because that is where God does his best work. When you're not trying to manipulate or manage the situation and you just trust God and you step out, like him stepping out on the water, the minute you try to figure out how the mechanics are operating, that's when you get distracted. But if you trust God and you keep moving forward, that is when he does his best work, because we are meant to trust him in that way. He is our Father.
Awesome. You're right. I know Mr. President got more example before we go to break. As a business owner, there were times where there were ebbs and flows of income, and just needing to have yourself grounded. Me, I store away like a chipmunk. You put my acorns where they need to go until I need them, and live, on the edge. But during period, the pandemic in particular, could you share an example of maybe where you had to live lean or do what you had to do in order to sustain during that time, or maybe an example of someone who had to do something like that? Would you?
I can tell you, owning a business, the first 5 years you're gonna live lean. you barely gonna pay yourself. You want to be able to take care of your family and maintain the lifestyle that you have. There are some sacrifices. No fancy sports cars, no fancy purchases other than what is needed to make the business grow and success, But you during the pandemic, it was a scary time because businesses did take a hit. They took a big hit because people wasn't coming outside. They didn't want a whole bunch of 7, 8 men inside their house painting and all this other stuff. People was being sent home, and some people had funding and some people didn't have much funding. And we was in a state of not knowing what was what. Back in the early times, our country have been through a lot of things. We as a people, we never really experienced that type of stuff. The pandemic, it felt like, wow, like
right.
We really at home. We really can't go nowhere, and we walking around and we got masks on. I made a joke one time. I was walking into the store and I had my mask on, and there was 3 other guys that had a mask on too, and we all walked in at the same time. And I said, a year ago, this wouldn't have looked right. 4 guys walking in the store together with a mask on. That's the time that we was living in. We were living in a fearful time, and the leadership was all crazy, talking about drink bleach and all this other stuff. And people were catching COVID, and they made it seem such like a doomsday. We lost a lot of people. They made it so it was a fearful time. Business-wise, it was very fearful because business went down.
Yeah.
It wasn't the type of business I'm in with renovations and things like that. It was more of what was needed versus what was wanted.
Right.
And if your business is based on 50 scale, where half of my customers that call me actually need something done because of an inconvenience or something broke or something ain't right and it has to be fixed because it can't continue to be like this. And the other half is, I want to paint the house. I want to change the flooring in here, So if half of that is gone,
yeah.
and then you got to understand that when we were at home, we actually spent more money.
It seemed that way.
Companies like Amazon blew up during the pandemic because everybody didn't go out. People didn't want to go out. It was the fear. It was just a whole thing of fear over everybody. Even the churches closed down. Everything was going virtual. School was going virtual. She used to come down the steps and sit in her little desk and her little ABC board in front of her and her little computer. So it was a different time and it was fearful, but we all made it through.
We did. Yeah.
We all made it through, but it impacted business, not just my business, but a lot of people's business. You got to think about business, again, when you look at it from the other side. You got some businesses that are necessities and some business are wants. So if your sole business is based on what people and not need,
that's going to go
times out of 10.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like heating and air conditioning companies. You would get calls for that because if you didn't have heat or air conditioning, you wanted it fixed. It needed to be fixed, right? If you were a plumbing company, if your toilet was stopped up, it needed to be unclogged, or a pipe busted or something, you needed that service. That's a need.
Yeah.
What I'm saying now, was they remodeling their bathrooms? Some of the people, we got a lot of work after the pandemic because some people try to do the stuff by themselves. And then they had to call in experts to do it. But during the pandemic, it was more of 50% of the business was based on necessities versus what you wanted. So yes, your business, I'm sure a lot of people's business closed, a lot of places closed, all that stuff. And the ones that adapted, they put their heads together and came up with a plan to make themselves a necessity. You got businesses like Amazon, you got DoorDash, you got Instacart. All these businesses saw what it was and said, this is what we need to do.
Brought people together.
They made the pivot. And that's very important with business, is being able to pivot You got to look at basketball when the guy's going down the court and this one guy's right here in his face the whole time. When he gets to a certain point, this guy's going to try to stay on him. He has to stop him. He has to get this guy off of him. You know,
I ain't even gonna hold you. I do not follow that logic whatsoever. But anyway,
I'm just saying, you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to pivot in life. Yeah. And that definitely was a time where fear was easily set in. A lot of people lost a lot of money and some people gained a lot of money. But if you was able to pivot, turn your business around to something that was needed versus something that was wanted, you survived it. And then if you didn't survive it, at this point, you should be revamped and back into it at this point.
I know that's right. And that's a good place for us to take a break, folks. Okay. And when we come back, I'd like to talk with them about community and how fear can push us towards a greater sense of community. Now, a word from our sponsors. Well, folks, we are back. Thank you for taking a listen to our sponsors. Now, before we close, Tyler and Andre, my amazing family members and community members, business owners, faith members, I just want to talk about how fear ushered us into a greater sense of community. As I mentioned previous, we were talking about how ICE caused a lot of fear in Hispanic communities, but I want to change gears a little bit and talk more about how fear caused us to develop a greater sense of community and a greater sense of pride, and what are some strategies that were deployed during that time that we could continue practicing so that we are better as a result of it. Any one of you can start.
Well, I'll speak real quickly. I was definitely moved by the sense of community when the Black Lives Matter movement was moving. Our world that we live in will do whatever they can do to try to erase our past and try to erase the bad things that they did. When I think, like I said, I don't dive deep into political things, but when you really think about a lot of the things that has happened and to different people and all that stuff like that, where they might try to say that you're the minority. We're not the minority no more. Yeah. It's been a long time since we've been a minority, and I think that's where their fear is coming from, because they know that they're not the minority, they're not the majority anymore, So with that being said, with the sense of community, I was really loving how our race was coming together, how we acknowledged and we saw things and we just stopped letting people say, do whatever they want to do and think that it was okay to get away with. And I've never been part of the big marches back in the day, because I wasn't born back then. But when you look at history and you see how our people marched from Alabama to Washington, D.C., and the Martin Luther Kings and the great who just passed away, Jesse Jackson, all these great Black leaders that we had, and not just the ones that we see on TV, ones that are behind the scenes too. We have to give them credit too as well. Yours and my grandmothers and grandfathers and all that stuff like that, all our people. So when the Black movement was moving, I was moving too. Too Black, too strong. We was just like, when the mayor of D.C. painted Black Lives Matter on that street, I was like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm like, give me my sign, you know what I'm saying? And hit here, I was in the heart, you know what I'm saying? So I felt good about the community coming together. And we are stronger together than we are separate. It's like a rope. If you take a rope apart and you have the one little yarn, the string, and then you tug it this way and you tug it that way, it pops. But when you intertwine them all together, it's stronger and it locks. And that's what the Black movement, the Black Lives Matter thing did. And I saw us come together as a group, as a race, stand up for what we believed in and wasn't letting them get away with things, and I was very, very happy about that. Very happy about that. Yeah.
Amen. Exactly. I agree. Yeah. It was awesome. And hopefully we will continue that momentum.
Yes. Indeed.
I would say you.
Just to piggyback off of that, a lot of that started because of the police brutality and the young boys being killed by policemen, and they were unarmed. And so it was like right in the face of not just adversity, but discrimination and injustice. We had to take a stand. And I believe what the movement really embodied was empowerment. Like our lives matter, and it's not just Black lives, but we represent the Black culture, because for whatever reason our lives are being diminished in mass media. And so it's important that we realize, especially as it relates to like just building community and supporting each other, that empowerment is key, because like you said, we are stronger together, and we won't let the forces of darkness or the forces that try to keep us down or oppressed continue. Like we want to continue to lock arms and support each other. And so that leads me to the advocacy. Which is something that I'm connected to through the National Coalition for the Homeless. Then you also talked a little bit about the pandemic, and a lot of people suffered financially during the pandemic. I was even the person who also got laid off during that period. So, and I didn't get employment like most people got. So people were literally trying to fend for themselves, trying to make a living, and just trying to survive. And a lot of the hullabaloo around the pandemic took a toll on people because it felt like their lives were on hold. And people don't realize that when your life is on hold or your finances aren't supporting your life, you have to literally be in this survival mode. And people who are unhoused are constantly in survival mode and just trying to survive to the next day. And what we do with the National Coalition is it's a policy and advocacy group that supports and empowers those that have lived experience, and to try to change the narrative around homelessness, especially now because it's becoming more so within the administration, a targeted population, because they are advancing the aspect of criminalization, and they are targeting them and making sure like there are no spaces like benches. They have like the dividers in them. They call that, I think they basically changed the architecture to make it comfortable for people to stay there. And when you have nowhere to go, and even the outside is becoming even more constrained for you to even exist in that space, like where do you go? What do you do? And then how do you find some community that'll help empower you to believe that there will be better on the other side of this? And that's why it's so important to hear from people who have experienced homelessness, because they can tell you the hardships and the things that they face, but how they were able to come through it and still come out on the other side stronger. And being in community with other people like that, even being in the community with other believers, it helps you to understand that you're not alone and that you're not facing these struggles on your own.
That's right. That's good. That's good. It's helping us. Even in the faith community, just wanting to remind our brothers and sisters that we're not in competition with one another as we move forward to attack some of the injustices in our world that create fear for than just people's basic needs, and it affects people's mental health, that we remain resource for those who are seeking to find that connection to God. Oftentimes with injustices in the world, some people pull apart from God, and that's about the time where you want to draw nearer to him, because he cares about you. And I've been in circles where there have been many different conversations about, well, if God cared about us, then why would he allow these things? And just like great president, Mr. President said earlier in this chat, there are going to be different things, different ingredients that go into creating the perfect matter in the hands of God, though. The difference is how do we take all of the things and all of the ingredients that we've been handed as a race and be the better of the two? How can we be the example? And so that's the challenge that I want to leave with brothers and sisters, a part of the faith community, that we don't stop fighting for our unity. Where there is unity, glory to God, there is strength. So I'm going to ask both of our guests, our special guests today, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they go? How would they keep in touch with you? And then we're going to have a last and final word from Mr. President before we depart. You guys, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, go ahead, Tyler.
Well, I know you were closing us out, so I wasn't sure. But
Okay.
I'll just say the best way to get in touch with us, of course, is to visit us on our podcast, of course, and also listen to hopefully we'll have some new episodes coming out very soon, and would love to be able to connect with you, hear you guys' feedback. Also on social media platforms, I'm Tyler Joy R. You can find me there as well.
Right. I'm not as advanced as talking about platforms and all that stuff like that. I'm just Uncle Andre. So I'm just going to go with it. We have an exciting continuous of our second season, I believe.
We're in the third season now.
Third season. See, I told you guys I wasn't all the way up on it. I like to talk a lot. We're coming up third season on the Richardson Hustle. And very excited about where we're going with it and how it's flowing. This season, we're going to have some exciting podcasts coming up. I'm definitely looking forward to that. You can also reach me on my email at andrerichardson086gmail.com will be the quickest way to get in touch with me directly. And also, as the president of WellPro Contractors, you can go to www.wellprocontractor.com and you can visit our website there, and we're very excited about that as well. Close out today, speaking of the Richardson family hustle, right? Now, when you're out here and you hustling, and we hustling in a good way. We hustling. The word hustle pretty much means that you have many avenues that you explore and things, and you use all your talents that God gives you to take care of yourself and your family and things like that. Especially as a man, it's in the Bible. This is my job. This is my God gave me this job. I sat through the interview, and the Bible told me this is what I had to do. So I have to do this. And I want to be one with God, and this is part of me being one with God, is to be able to take care of my family and take care of myself too, but take care of my family. So we call it the Richardson Hustle because we have a different variety of a whole bunch of things. Life started with Mary and Richard Richardson. And I don't know, I lost count. I'm gonna be honest with you. I got nieces, I got great nieces, I got cousins, oh man, it's plentiful. And it always joys me. We have our own little family chat and everything like that. And I'm always cracking jokes in it because I love you guys and all that stuff, and it's all love. But it's definitely a hustle out here. And I want you guys to know that along the way, as you start to climb the success ladder and you get at success, and then you will come across these people that they call haters. Mm-hmm. So I just want to send this message to my family and everybody who's listening to me that you have to hustle. You have to hustle hard. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you hustle until the haters ask you, are you hiring?
See?
All right.
Well, folks, you heard it here first on the Gathering Room podcast. Hey, man, I'm so excited about the new season. We're going to catch up with some of our hosts. We're going to talk about some real life circumstances and stuff. Y'all going to see some new stuff come out of us. To follow us on socials, visit TGR.online_GS on all social platforms. You can connect with our events. You can subscribe, share this content, help us get our message out, and we look forward to doing life with you. God bless you. May heaven shine down upon you and grant you. Until next time, amen.